design is a medium of change, and it's a medium of communication, and it's a medium of changing people's attitudes towards things.
A lot of people have good ideas, but to take a good idea and make it real, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of detail, and it takes something beyond the pure pursuit of art in design.
To be successful as a designer, I think first of all you have to have a real passion for it. Designers tend to make, a pretty good living, but don't go into it for as a reason being that you can make a good living. It should be something that you do just because it's fun.
My interest in science and creativity led to design and inventiveness, and then I looked at professions that connected with that. And really the applied sciences are often a refuge for people who are looking for a regular job, a steady paycheck, an interesting job, but one that seems within reach.
When you hear the word design, you might think about fashion or home decor or logos that stand out on the items you buy. You see examples of design everywhere you look. The buildings that surround you, the devices you use every day, the websites you visit, the vehicles that move you, the billboards you read along the way, even the tools and machines used to produce all of these items. These are all products that originated in the mind of a designer.
Graphic designers are not people who just make things pretty. They're people who make things that are smart. The first time I met Zach, I had Zach in Type 1, and he, right from the beginning, just was an exceptionally good graphic design student.
I'd never done anything sort of hands-on art-wise in high school. I was really big into math and science, and Bill Nye the Science Guy, and all of the Science Court and the things you watched in 7th and 8th grade and earth science class and stuff. I loved all that stuff. And I had taken my love of science and my love of physics and math and structure and had combined it with my background in music and art and singing and drawing and those sort of things. And I'd kind of put them together. Design, for me at least, from what I've seen of it so far, is very much art that's been repurposed.
The POP class, which stands for Point of Purchase, is essentially a packaging design class. So in that class, what we're talking about is the marketing aspects of things like labels, containers, displays.
The beer packaging project was easily my favorite project that we've done this far. We have to build the projects, we have to actually manufacture the things and come up with a more effective design. We were given a number of fictional breweries to choose from. I've always been into literature. I'm a huge fan of poetry. So the one I opted for was Poetic Justice. A lot of times I start with a logo. I decided that I didn't want to start with a logo necessarily this time and focus more on the word list. I wrote down poetic justice and beer and all the topics that I needed to cover, and I just wrote. And it was actually at that moment that I had the idea to look into actual poetry itself. What is it about poetry that makes it special? I mean, it's just words, isn't it? Why is it so popular? So I looked into it. I read some stuff that I hadn't read before. I read some of my old favorites, Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou, Emily Dickinson, and in doing so, I discovered that poetry, unlike any of the other art forms, literally speaks for itself. It is just words on a page, and it's those words that do all the talking. So it became pretty obvious to me that I needed to do something typographic.
I think that ultimately you do see this kind of connection between strong writing skills and strong design skills, in the sense that I think that it's all about communication. And solid writing skills are essential. And being able to think about those words and what they mean, and connect them visually with something, I think is a real skill.
So I went with what we in the business call expressive typography, which is words that just through their rendering communicate their idea. For example, one of the beers was the MacGuffin Scottish Ale. MacGuffin is a plot device that sort of gives the story meaning. It's why the story is happening, but in the end it doesn't actually end up playing any purpose at all. It's sort of like The Ring in Lord of the Rings. Like, it's why they're going on this huge quest, but that's not what the story is about. It's about them on the journey. After a whole bunch of processing and revision, I came up with the style that I have now, which is the words MacGuffin Scottish Ale broken up to fit nicely on the side of the bottle, and as they go down, they lose focus. It seems visually less important. And that was actually the first one that I came up with. And it made it easier to come up with the other ones because I knew how the other ones needed to operate also. I knew that they needed to visually represent their meaning and also be reminiscent of some films or some stories, or tap into the sort of the subconscious of the people viewing it to give them that feeling. The same with the Death Trap Triple, which is the second one I did. I actually took the letters out of the words Death Trap Triple and changed them into numbers, counting down, 3, 2, 1. As a sort of nod to every death trap that has ever been. Chekhov's gun was the hardest. Anton Chekhov, he's the first to say that if you put a loaded gun on stage in the first act, it had better go off in the second. The idea being that you don't put anything in unless you need it. So I in the end, opted for a very clean typeface, no serifs, nothing unnecessary. The dot of the I is up, acting as the apostrophe in the word Chekhov's. So it's being repurposed in a sense. The red herring Hefeweizen was my favorite of them. It has the word stout hidden in it in red lettering. By picking up the bottle and trying to figure out what it says in the lettering, I've stopped you and distracted you, which is exactly the definition of a red herring.
I hear from art directors and creatives all the time that when they talk to students, one of the biggest frustrations is that they want to hear them speak about their graphic design. Why did you pick the typeface that you did? Why did you choose this sort of stylization? Why this type of imagery? Why this color choice? And so we want to make sure that we're training students to not only be able to make great design, but be able to articulate why it is what they did was the correct solution.